Hi everybody, thank you for joining me. We are going to sew the credit card add-on for the Zippy Clutch together. Thank you so much for purchasing my pattern, and let's jump right into it. What we're going to need to do is either use our pattern piece, this one right here, or we can just cut it to measure. It is 9 inches wide by 17 5/8 inches tall. Yes, the 5/8, it counts. That eighth of an inch, it actually does matter. The whole thing with this is precision and accuracy completely count. You got to be right on par with this. Otherwise, it's going to come up too short. It'll be the correct length, hopefully, but you'll be too short. So you got to be real accurate with this. That's the whole trick with credit card slots. If you're accurate, you're going to have success every single time. So the first thing you're going to want to do after you've cut out all your pieces, like I said, this is the one that we're going to be using. This is going to be, I'm going to be working from this side. This will be the top. It's a little backwards for me, but it's filming the other direction. I like to be perfectly honest with y'all. I'm on the page 2, right here. We're going to do the front side first, the right side up, and we are going to measure it and mark our 3 spots, 5-inch, 9-inch, and 13-inch. I use these pens I got on Amazon. I have no idea what they are, where they're from. I just like what company makes them. I will happily provide a link where I get them from though. So what we want to do here is mark our first spot from this side. We're going to consider this the top. The reason I put top on it is so if you have directional fabric that you know that that's the side you have to work from. So that would be the top of the piece. So what we want to do is mark it at 5. And in the pattern, I tell you to use the edge too. So you're going to square it up. So you're going to use this line here and you're going to use this line here. This pen is water soluble. And now I'm going to go down and mark my 9. Now, making sure that I have it lined up, I see that my other line is covered up by the 4. That's perfect. There's our next line. I'm very retentive about my lines. And the next one we want to do is 13. Which on this ruler doesn't exist. So what I like to do, because I do have a giant ruler, but it's really hard to film, what I'm going to do is mark it using this one. It's not that big a deal. So if this is what you have, you'll learn how to use this one. So you're going to, again, use the edge and cover up your lines. So you can see that the 8 is now covered and the 4 is covered. We are up at the end on 13 here. And I'm just going to slide it across. I think sometimes it's best to show you guys that you don't have to have everything I have to get the job done. So this ruler is the 14 by 4 by OmniGrid, and I love it. All right, so there we go. So those are our first markings, and that's on the front side. So now we're just going to flip it. Again, I'm working, this is the top. If you forget, just put a T, then you know that's the top. So on the back side, the markings we have to do are 3.25, 7.25, and 11.25. And for that, we can go back and use our bigger ruler. This is the ruler that I got on Amazon when they had that sale, and we were all checking out the ruler. So 3.25 on the back. And trust me, when you're doing this on your own, it's lickety split. You're done. But when we're filming it, it's a little bit more precise. So I'm 3.25. Slide it down, 7.25. And again, I'm using my edge here, so I'm getting my 90. As long as I've got this edge straight and this edge straight, my lines are going to be straight. Now, if I line it up here and it's like that, then I didn't cut this straight, and I need to go back and recut my piece. So again, 7.25, button it up on the edge. And the line we're going to cover up as we keep going across on this one is 2 1/4. It's just how it works out. Is it? Wait, no, my bad. It's 4. It's 4, 4, 4. I take all that back. There we go. So that's 7.25. Now we're going to bump it down to 11.25. 11 1/4. All of this will make sense. I promise. And I know my big head is in the way. That can't be avoided. All right. So I'll grab the paper here so y'all can see. The front we did 5, 9, 13. The back we're doing 3, 2, 5, 7, 2, 5, 11, 2, 5. We are done with our pen. We'll cap that up because they dry up fast. Cap it up, set it to the side. All right. So we are going to grab our ironing mat, or we're going to go to our ironing mat. For purposes here, I'm using my wool iron mat. And I'm going to be working, since we already have it, I'm just going along here, right here with you, not going anywhere. So I am doing it with the wrong side up. Now, I know your thought process is to worry about the lines you can see. No, it is not. Otherwise, we would have marked it all on one side. The reason we're doing this is because once we fold this back, we're going to expose the 5 line. There it is. How easy is that? Now, when you fold this, I don't want you to fold it so you can see the 5 line. You do that, none of it's going to come out right. You have to make sure that that 5 line is on your top edge. And that was why we also use these side edges for measurement. So that way we know we are perfectly squared off. So you almost don't want to see that line. You want to see it, find it, finger press it, and then just use your iron right across there. Now we're going to fold this back again. We're going to expose the number 9, the 9-inch line. There she is. I'm going to finger press it. Roll it up if you have to. That's why we're finger pressing it first. And now you're just going to do this. And the next one. All right. And I purposely used this fabric so you all could see it. Otherwise, it's very tough to see. And I'm just getting a good crease with my iron. Now, that side's done. Flip it over. Gonna roll it back. Oh, look what that is. That's the top. And this is our 3.25 line. Finger press it. And again, like I said, you don't want to see it. If you see it like this, that's not what you want. We just want to find it and make sure that it is on the top of the fold. Next one, we've got my apologies, bless me. There's no way I'm refilming that. And this is why if this was fully on YouTube, somebody would come on and critique all that. And I'm pretty sure y'all are going to be like, oh my God, she's hilarious. Sneezing on screen. Yeah, I'm not actually that funny. I hear someone upstairs. All right, so there's that. Next one we're going to do, this is the last one. And while you're doing this, the reason I'm using the tip of the iron, not the whole iron, is because I don't want to undo the crease on the other side. And it doesn't really take a lot of heat. All right. Now, you do have some wiggle room. I mean, when you make this, if it comes up a little short, you're sewing at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. You can get a little room. All right, so that one's done. So now we've done all of them. Now look what's going to happen. Now remember, T is for top. This is the top. I'm going to fold all these up. Oh, look how pretty that is. Isn't that pretty? I think it's pretty. So now what we're going to do, next step, again, I'm just following along in my own directions. We are on page 4. We're on figure 11, figure 12. What I want to do now, I want to check my measurements. So everything's pretty flat, and I'm not going to iron this yet. I'm going to check things. Look at that. Looks pretty good. If I want, I can roll it up a little bit. Because it's supposed to be from the top 1.5 inches. So there's 1.5 inches. Yeah, that's it. Good. Good for us. So that one's good. So if you want, you can press that. The reason I use P44F as my interfacing on this little project is because it's really thin and it's not tough to sew through. If you use SF101, you're going to regret it. You're going to rue the day. So now I'm just going to check these from each fold. So from this fold to the top of that fold, 1/2 inch, and the next one's 1/2 inch. So you can see all of those. So from here to this fold is 1/2 inch, from this fold to this fold is 1/2 inch. Everything's straight. That's how we check if we're straight. So now you can go ahead and iron. Now if you were using darker fabric, it wouldn't make a difference with your pen markings. Your client is not going to see them. When you're done, after you've done everything, don't spray this yet because you'll have shrinkage. So if you were to heat this up and then spray it, you'll watch that fabric actually shrink up, and we don't want that. So now that we've made those folds, our beautiful folds, we are done with page 4. We are moving on to page 5, and that means we're going to the sewing machine, my friends. So we are ready to go sew this. Ooh, but before we do that, let's check our measurements fully and completely. All right. So we are measuring 9 inches wide. My apologies. 9 inches wide. Perfect. You have no idea how ecstatic I am here. I feel so good about this. 9 inches, and then I do believe that it's supposed to be 7 1/8. So let's take a look. See, because I've done this so many times that I no longer really go back and measure it. Yeah, 7 1/8. So look at that. There we go. Right there, right there. It does. It comes in right at the 7 1/8. It's right between the 1/8 and the 1/4. We're golden. We're ready. We're ready to rock and roll and go sew this thing up. So let's go take it to the machine and we'll do the next step. Woohoo! We are at the machine and we are ready to stitch our pockets. As one of my testers reminded me, when I write a pattern, I kind of write it as I go, and I failed to add one little portion in there that you need to make sure that you pull out each of the pockets as you sew it and separate it from the other pockets and the rest of the piece. Otherwise, you'll just be stitching the pockets closed. So we want to flip that back, and we're going to top stitch at 1/8 of an inch. Real pretty, real close to the top edge. If you want to get fancy, do a second row. I don't need to get fancy. I feel fancy enough as it is today. So now we're going to do this one and going to top stitch across at 1/8 of an inch again. And we're going to do the last one, 1/8 of an inch. Ooh, and this happens to me a lot. If I cut it too close, my thread will pop out. I am by no means perfect, and you will always see my errors. Several reasons. One, I want you to see that I make them. And two, I'm too lazy to go back and delete them. All right, here we go. So now we're going to go back. Again, our top stitch length. On my machine, 3.5 is nice, but your machine may be different. All right, so there we go. Now I'm going to trim off any of these extra little threads I have because I don't like them. I really don't like them. And there's always extra threads. And don't worry, most of those the edge threads, don't worry if they're going to pull out, they won't, because they're going to be caught in our wings, which we'll be attaching in a few minutes here. And that's a little wonky. I'm not going to worry about it. For all intents and purposes, I'm just going to leave it. And fold that all back. I'm using dark gray thread. I normally would not. I would use white. I believe that a high contrast thread has a tendency to show your flaws. And that's one of those things that I would prefer to keep to myself. So I try to do and use threads that match the fabric that I'm working with. All right, so that's done. So now what we need to do, we need to mark the center. and the center is at 4.5 inches because the width of this is 9. So what we need to use is our marking pen and one of our rulers. And I have one right here. I apologize for the reach. This one's handy dandy 4.5 incher. Now, we are not going to stitch it all the way to the bottom. We don't want to do that. What we want to do is stitch it just here. That's it, across the pouch. So you can feel when you go to mark this, since this is 4.5 inches, it's exact. So I'm going to do it exactly 4.5 inches there on the edge. I just want to mark on the actual slot. That's it. I can feel it with my finger where it ends. I can feel it where it starts. If it doesn't mark too dark, don't worry. It's not a big deal. It doesn't need to. So now we have two options here. The first option, which is the easiest one, and I'm not going to do it because it's that easy, is to stitch straight down. You'll start stitching, take 2 stitches, back stitch, and then you'll stitch all the way to the end, take 2 stitches back, come back forward, stop, cut, and trim. You're done. The other one, which looks a little bit fancier, and you'll find it in the pattern, steps 16 through 23. You are going to start at 1/8 of an inch to the right of the line, and we're not going to start at the top. We're going to start at the top stitch line. My thread looks like she's going to come right out, and she's not. All right. I am going to, now I'm not going to back stitch here because when I come back around, I'll stitch into those holes. So now you can take 2 stitches forward. I mean, if you feel that need, if you're that gal, I mean, feel free to take 1, 2, make sure you go back in the same holes, and we're going to stitch all the way down just to the bottom of that blue line. And I can feel and see where the bottom of my pocket is. You can go past it. It's not a big deal. Now, you always want to make sure that your needle is not at the perfect bottom, but is on its way up, because that means it caught the bobbin thread. I'm going to rotate 90, and I'm going to stitch across. It's about 2 stitches on my machine, and I'm going to rotate 90 again, and I'm going to stitch straight up. And now again, I am still on the right side of the blue line because I'm going the opposite direction. I'm going to stitch all the way to the top. Again, I'm stitching at 1/8 of an inch, and I want to land, and I perfectly landed right in the top stitch line. I am on my way back up. I'm going to rotate it again 90. I'm going to top stitch across, take 2 stitches. It is totally cool if you end up in those top stitch lines. No big deal. Make sure the needle's on its way up. Rotate 90. Take 2 stitches down. And it is good to end up in the stitches you actually stitched before, and you're done. That's it. And then you trim, and when you spray it, it looks like a very nice little rectangle there. And it is enough space for the credit cards to slide in. So, but you have to keep it at 1/8 of an inch. If you feel like you're the kind of gal or guy that can't do it at 1/8 of an inch exactly, then just straight stitch down and don't worry. So I know that this is going to fit because I'm going to shave off 1/2 inch here, which is roughly, it's about that much. So my pockets are perfect. This is fantastic. Things are going great. Swimmingly, as they say. And so now let's get ready with our wings. So we're going to stop here, go grab your wings, and we're going to DST those things and get them on here next. We are closing in on the home stretch here. The next thing we need to do is trim off 1/2 inch. I prefer working with the fabric to be a little larger in case I need to make adjustments. If it was a little crooked or if it didn't come out exactly the way I wanted it, I'd rather lose 1 whole inch of fabric than have to recut everything. And so when I look at this on my cutting mat, it's perfect. Everything measured up perfectly. So I am good to go ahead and hack off half an inch on this side and a half an inch on that side. Now, to successfully do this and not have it shift, you really got to press down on that ruler. So I'm going to really press down, and when I get to these thicker spots, I'm just going to go slow. Just go slow. And now I've taken off half an inch, toss it to the side, and spin it around, do the other side. Half an inch, remember, half an inch. Just go slow. If you're afraid of going that uphill, like you're going to hit it and pull it, start there. Go backwards, go forwards. Just find your groove. This is mine. Real firm. Hands are turning white from the pressure I'm applying. All right, there we go. So those are done. And the next thing we want to do is take our wings. Here are our 2 wing pieces, and we are going to put our DST on them, our double-sided tape. I like DST over pins for this. It holds it nice. It's nice and taut. You can use the repositionable that Tandy Leather carries. This is the repositionable. You can also use score. I have score as well, which is only 1/8 of an inch wide. This works just as nice. Typically, because we're sewing at 1/4 of an inch, it will stay out of the path of the needle when we stitch it down. And then when we top stitch, yes, it will be there, but you'll be going through a bunch of layers, so it won't have as much of effect. So now what we want to do, this is the one on this side, this is the one on this side. This is our wings. We're going to peel off our paper backing. And place our wings on. It's one side. And the other side. All right. Wow. Oh, I must have lopped this one a little too short. That's my bad. So what I'm going to do, I ironed it. I ironed it in the back. I did exactly what I told you all not to do. It's fine. I actually had it mismeasured there. That was my bad. But I did iron it, so it's a tiny, tiny, tiny bit shorter there than it should be. It's fine. Trust me, it's fine. So there you go. So these are ready, and this is how it's going to look. And if you take a peek on page, I believe it's page 6, on step 28, you can see our final, well, we just did 24 through 28, and we are ready to take it to the machine, and we are going to stitch both of these at 1/4 of an inch. We're already at the machine, but it's time to reposition so y'all can see what I'm up to. We are ready to do our next step, which is to stitch our wings to the center portion, the credit card slots. So I'm stitching them at 1/4 of an inch. I'm going to reduce my stitch length. Stitch straight down. Now my machine went through those layers like butter, like a hot knife through butter, which is why I absolutely love this machine. I used to sweat on my old machine, no kidding. I would hand crank through stuff like thicker than this, but it was just enough. I had just had enough. I couldn't do it anymore. And this coming in under $1,000, and I don't mean $9.99 or whatever. It's under $1,000. Talk to Steve at Sewing Gold in Chicago. Great guy, wonderful to deal with. I did not buy from him. I bought from another company in Chicago, but I've dealt with Steve to help out someone else who needed some help. And he was just a doll. Great guy, absolutely loved him. I'll send everybody there. I like my guys. I really do. They came out and serviced my industrial machine, my embroidery, my 10 needle embroidery. I like them a lot too. So now I've top stitched or stitched both these wings, and now what I want to do, this is the final where I'm breathing a little, taking a few more breaths. I am going to confirm that this matches up with the pattern piece that it's going to mate with. And so I'm going to back off so y'all can see what I'm talking about. So this piece is going to mate with this piece. If they don't match, we did something wrong. But they do. They match. They match in height, they match in width, everything is good. We are ready to rock and roll. Looks like mine is a teeny tiny touch bigger, which is that roughly 1/8 of an inch. Remember we discussed that I had a little bit more. Totally fine. If you're going to shave it off anywhere, just shave it off this top. But I don't see it as any issue at all. I would not change a single thing. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to pull these taut, and I'll check it again when we're done, but I'm going to pull these taut and I'm going to top stitch down on both sides of the wings. And then we'll measure one more time. But when I say taut, I do mean taut. I don't mean just fold it back and do it like that. It does matter when you're making these slots. So if you want it to be exact, grab your score tape. If you believe your machine can handle sewing through score tape, grab your score tape, throw it down on this portion right there, because we want the seam allowance, this is the seam allowance, we want it to be under the wing. We don't want it to be under the credit card slots. So we're just going to fold our wing over onto that seam allowance. Now we're going to rotate. I'm going to do this side. Why not? I did the other side. You don't have to. You really don't have to. You can finger press it. You can roller press it. Or you can use your score tape. Or you can use your double-sided tape from Tandy. Or you can use your tape that you got in the quilting section at Joann. Whatever your machine works with. I just prefer tape over pins. I'm just not a pin fan. All right, there we go. I did it. It's nice and taut. And now I'm going to top stitch. And I'm going to change my stitch length to do my top stitch. Here we go. And how I'm top stitching is, I can sew it out of the side of the foot. It's just how I sew. But you want to be 1/8 of an inch. When I top stitch anything, I always do it 1/8 of an inch. That's because my seam allowance is 1/4 of an inch. If my seam allowance was 1/2 an inch, then I would have more room to play with fabric underneath when I'm top stitching, and you could top stitch at 1/4 of an inch. But since I always sew at 1/4 of an inch, there's only 1/4 of an inch underneath there. So technically, if I were to top stitch at 1/4 of an inch, I might not catch that seam allowance underneath. So that's why I always do 1/8. Done. There it is. I did it one time today. I said done. I can't help myself. And I will trim up my other pieces. And there we go. Everything matches up. We are good to go. This side's completely done. You can take your, I would not spray it. I would take a cloth, get it wet, and wipe it off. And that would be the best way to get it off. Or if you're not going to come back to this till tomorrow, then spray it, leave it. Don't put an iron on it after you spray it because you're going to shrink everything up. And we will double check. Here's a credit card. You're going to see it. Look at this. Oh, hooby dooby. Look at that. Oh, so nice. It's nice. It's tight. These cards can't slip out. See how nice that looks? It's so pretty. It's just so pretty. It just makes me so happy. Okay, so there we go. That is the tutorial for the credit card add-on. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned a few things. And I can't wait to see everything you all post. I'm very excited to see everyone's posts. So don't forget, if you don't follow me on Instagram, you can. I've got the pattern right here. I was gonna pull that out right there. You can follow me on Facebook in the group. If you're not there, you can follow me on YouTube. I do stuff on YouTube that is not in my group. This is my storefront, and this is my Etsy shop. And right here is the video link that you'll be able to use to go use that 7-inch zipper template to do the other side. So, like I said, I hope you enjoyed this. If you have notes while you're sewing, write them in down there because there was a little space at the end of the pattern. Have a wonderful day, and thank you so much for joining me.